Dave Palumbo here with an RX Muscle supplement and science review. And guys, I want to talk today about essential fatty acids. You know, I feel like I talk about these topics over and over and over again, and we basically do. And the reason for that is because reiteration of a topic and constantly reminding people about the science of what's going on is how we learn. I know it's how I learn. The more you hear it, the more you kind of integrate it into your subconscious, and it becomes a part of the knowledge base that you have. And you know, I hear such ignorant statements all the time out there. There's these self-proclaimed gurus, one specifically who he actually was, I can't even believe he made this statement that all fats that you eat get stored as fat. He made that blanket statement, and this is a guy who's touting himself as, you know, as the new guru on the block, so to speak. He probably has no educational background whatsoever. You know, he's a self-proclaimed, so to speak. And he's saying that all fats you eat get stored as fat. They have no other intrinsic value, therefore get rid of them from the diet. I mean, that is probably the most heinous, stupidest statement to possibly make if you know the science of how the body operates, which is that there are essential fatty acids in our body. Fats are not just stored as white body fat. There are three classes of fats specifically, really. I break them into three. There's two, the saturated fats and polyunsaturated fats, but I think a better way to break them down would be your saturated, monounsaturated, and then the polyunsaturated fatty acids. The saturated fats would be predominantly your animal fats, you know, with the exception of the short and medium chain fats that come from plants like coconut and palm oil. And then, of course, you have, you know, your monounsaturates, which are your really heart healthy fats. They're not essential, but they're really good in terms of using for fuel purposes, for keeping your cholesterol profiles healthy. Those are your extra virgin olive oils, contain predominantly monounsaturated fats. Remember, all oils are mixtures of different, you know, types of fats, but they're predominantly monos. You have your macadamia nut oil, which I'm a big proponent of, you know, because you can cook with it. It has a high smoke point. It doesn't get oxidized easily. It tastes good. And then, of course, you have the avocado oil. I would say those are the three predominant monounsaturated fats. And these are not, while they're not essential, they're not fats that you would consume and they would get stored as fat immediately. You know, they're not what we would call negative partitioning of fats. So, and then the third category, which I'm going to talk about now because I think it's very important, which are known as the essential fatty acids or the polyunsaturated fats. The reason they call them the essential fatty acids is because they're essential. So to make a statement like all fats get stored as fat and they have no intrinsic value is ridiculous, because we know that the class of essential fatty acids, the omega-3s and 6s specifically, and I'll go into that in a little more detail in a minute, are necessary for many bodily processes, you know, from the repair of cell membranes, including muscle cell membranes that you damage in the gym when you break down muscle tissue. There are essential fatty acids that are found in these membranes that are required. So if you have a lack of them or a deficiency of them, you won't repair muscle optimally. So right then and there, we know that intrinsically these essential fats are necessary in the muscle building and repair process. They're also used to make prostaglandins, you know, pro-inflammatory, anti-inflammatory ones. They're used even in the endocannabinoid system in our brain, which, you know, gives that the feeling of well-being and pain alleviation. You know, the natural opiates that are in our body. So we know that there's a lot of uses for them. I mean, in babies, you have to provide, you know, arachidonic acid and DHA to these babies, or they don't develop properly, especially babies who breastfeed, that would be in there already. But if you have to create a formula, you have to add them in there or their brain will not develop properly, which means that they're intrinsic to the nervous system development as well. So, you know, when I hear stupid statements like that, and it's usually made by people who are trying to put themselves up there as you know, more knowledgeable than everyone else out there. There's one thing that I don't do on a regular basis ever, unless I'm attacked personally, is that I don't think I'm better than anyone, and I don't think I'm smarter than everyone. I just know that I have a very good educational background, and I do my research, and I've been doing this practically speaking for 30 years. So I have a lot of practical experience in addition to knowledge that I actually accrued from going to school. having a degree, in biology from college, doing 4 years of medical school, 3 years of medical school. Whether you graduate or not, I took the classes and I passed part 1 of the medical board. So I have this knowledge in my brain slammed in there. So, the science is what the science is. People can make up all the bro science they want. And it might sound good marketing wise, but it's not doing it's really not doing you guys who are trying to learn any good. That's why I try to put out very valid and accurate information. And if I am wrong at some point, because I've made mistakes before, I come on and I admit it. I have no problem. I'm human. I'm fallible. But getting back to the essential fatty acids, there's 2 classes, omega-6 and omega-3s. The omega-6s, the parent compound, okay, that is technically the essential fatty acid in the omega-6 family is known as linoleic acid. Linoleic acid needs to convert to specific, it's 3 intermediates, but really 2 intermediates that really do something. One is arachidonic acid, which if you eat if you're a meat eater, chicken, red meat, you probably get enough of it in there. But if you're not, you might be deficient. Arachidonic acid is one of those pro-inflammatory fatty acids that's necessary. It helps stimulate or signal to the body, hey, guys, clean up this damaged muscle tissue and build more. So when you work out, you damage muscle, you release arachidonic acid, it creates an inflammatory response via production of certain prostaglandins, and that's the signal so that your body would come and repair itself. That's why taking non-steroidal anti-inflammatories like ibuprofen is not a good idea on a regular basis, because it inhibits that arachidonic acid converting into these inflammatory prostaglandin processes. So we don't want that to happen. The other essential omega-6 intermediate that the linoleic acid gets converted into would be gamma-linolenic acid. And GLA, or gamma-linolenic acid, can be found in very high amounts in evening primrose oil, borage oil, hard to get in the diet itself. So supplemental forms of it are much easier, whereas arachidonic acid you can pretty much find that in the diet that we consume, because animals, especially animals that eat corn and feed, tend to have a lot of arachidonic acid in there. Now, if you don't have enough arachidonic acid, you could take supplements like X Factor that Bill Llewellyn sells. I sell it actually on my Dave Palumbo website too, because I'm a believer in it for people who need extra arachidonic acid. And you could check that out and try it out, and you'll see that when you take that extra arachidonic acid, you tend to get a little bit more sore after your workouts, and because of this inflammatory response that's occurring on when you take the arachidonic. Now, if you're getting an increased inflammatory response, post-workout taking the supplement, it probably means you need it, because it means there's maybe not enough signal present. But the gamma-linolenic acid is really the thing you really want to target, and that's what you want to take in a supplement form. I tell people take evening primrose oil or borage oil. I made it pretty easy for people. I actually created Omega Lyze, and I actually put the omega-6s in there, which is gamma-linolenic acid, and I also have the omega-3s, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Now, the omega-3 family parent compound is known as alpha-linolenic acid, and alpha-linolenic acid, ALA for short. And I always tell people, if you want to remember alpha-linolenic acid, what you do is 3 words, alpha-linolenic acid and omega-3. Whereas the omega-6 intermediate is linoleic acid. That's only 2 words. So that's how I remembered it anyway. But once you kind of commit it to memory, it kind of sticks there. And the words do sound very similar, so can be confusing. Sometimes it's just easier to use the abbreviations. ALA. Now, ALA has to convert into the activated forms, which are EPA and DHA. Now, humans have a very sluggish enzyme system converting that parent compound, the ALA, into those DHA, EPA. So it's much easier for us to get the intermediates that we require from eating animal sources of protein, animals who've already converted it. If you eat plant sources of ALA, like flaxseed, you might only convert 10% of that over into the active form. So flaxseed or other plant sources of omega-3s are not the best way to get what you need essential fatty acid wise. You're better off getting it from fish oils, okay, krill oil, stuff like that, because those animals have converted, they've consumed the algae, they've taken the parent alpha-linolenic acid, and they've converted it into usable form. The usable form being the DHA and EPA. And we know those are important signalers in the anti-inflammatory response. So they kind of oppose the actions of arachidonic acid, and so in a sense balance them off. You don't want too much inflammation in your body. You don't want too little inflammation in your body. So the omega-3s and 6s should balance each other, and that's why they should be taken in almost a 1-to-1 ratio. I usually skew it a little bit in favor of the omega-3s because we get a little too much omega-6 from our diet. So Omega-Lyze, for instance, would have 3 grams of fish oil, 2,600 milligrams of evening primrose oil, which would give you the daily requirement of your gamma-linolenic acid, and your DHA and EPA, and that would be perfect. Now, when you take in those essential fatty acids, now your body has the ability to repair nerve tissue, to make prostaglandins, both the pro and the anti-inflammatory ones, repair muscle cell membranes, which is so important to us as people who work out. And there's an innumerable other reactions in the body that require these essential fatty acids. And you'll find when you restore them, your skin will get better, your hair will feel better, your nails will feel better. And that's not because of you're increasing, that people think that's a protein thing. It's a fatty acid thing. You need the essential fats. If you have bad skin, for instance, if you have even eczema or psoriasis, sometimes it could be a fatty acid deficiency. When I used to do the old 80s diets, which was no fat essentially, my nails and my skin would be so dry, it would drive me nuts. And I never understood why. Once again, you can't deprive yourself of the essential fatty acids. You can do it for short periods of time and get away with it. But long term, you're going to be putting yourself in a deficiency, and you're actually handicapping your body's ability to repair itself and look its best. Also, think about what happens. Your body doesn't take in enough essential fatty acids, okay? It's going to sense that it's in a fat-deprived state. You think the first priority of a body that's thinking it's in a fat-deprived state is going to be to mobilize the stored body fat? Even though the stored body fat is not the same as the essential fatty acids, your body doesn't know the difference. It just knows it's fat-deprived. So now you're fighting that propensity for your body to store fat and not let it go because it's afraid it doesn't have enough coming in. And so that's going to make it hard for you to lose weight. I see it in women more. Women, because they have estrogen in their body, estrogen's job, essentially from a metabolic standpoint, is to conserve fat in the lower body in case the women get pregnant, and during famine times there's energy there. If you deprive a woman of essential fatty acids, what you'll see is she'll get leaner in her upper body and her lower body will not be as lean. And I know a lot of people and a lot of women have come to me, and that's why women do really well on ketogenic diets where you can provide enough fats so the body doesn't sense it's fat deprived, yet the carbs are low, so they're losing weight. And so that's one of the better ways, especially for women, because of that estrogen component. But it works the same for men as well. Once again, they're called essential fatty acids because they're essential to the diet. It's not an either or, and to say fats are all the same is moronic. That's like, 1800s mentality. If they even knew anything about essential fats, then they probably did. But the point is, we have to understand the differences between all these categories of fats and what we need them for. And you know what? You need some saturated fat too. That's not the villain, okay? Because saturated fat contains good cholesterol in it that your body will use to make the steroidal hormones in your body, okay? There are needs for cholesterol. Cholesterol is found also in the cell membrane. So you should, the good thing is your body can make cholesterol if it needs to, but providing some animal sources of protein to balance off all the other stuff, especially because the arachidonic acid is found in the animal source of protein, is a good idea. And that's why when I give diets out, I balance the different fat sources from whole eggs to red meat to, nuts to avocados to macadamia nut oil to maybe all natural peanut butter to the, wild caught salmon, or grass-fed beef. You have to vary the fat sources so you're getting all 3 of these categories taken in the right amount. And then on top of that, you take your essential fatty acid supplement. Why? Because this is your insurance policy. In case you don't get it from the diet, you're always taking them in. And the essentials must be taken in every day, whereas the other source of fat, not necessarily, because they're not essential. Your body can kind of interconvert other sources of fat to get the stuff it does need, not these. And so take a supplemental form of it. It comes out to about 6 grams of fat per day. That's nothing. It's 60 calories. This is what your body requires. And then if you want to do low fat days because you're really trying to, lean out and you're just doing protein and vegetables, no problem, because you got your essentials in at least. And you could always do that for a couple days and then bump up your fats a little bit or bump your carbs, whatever whatever the regimen is of your coach that is helping you, but you can never exclude the essential fatty acids. And that is the important point to take home here. All right, guys, I hope you enjoy these little seminar lecture type things that I do. I'm going to start doing a little bit more of that. You know what? I start thinking, you know what? I do too many of these things that people, I'm repeating myself, but the bottom line is that people like this because it gives them another perspective. It kind of reinforces these concepts and it explains not only why, not that you need to take them, but why you need to take them. And that is important. When you understand why you're doing something, you're much more likely, number one, to do it and get good results from it, but then pass the knowledge on to other people and explain to them so we can. Look, there's a lot of ignorance out there and there's a lot of bull crap, science out there. We want to pass on the right type of science. That is the science-based information that is real and that is, something that's going to actually help people to not only, look good, but to be healthy. I'm Dave Palumbo with another RX Muscle Supplement and Science Review.